Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is another devlog for my indie game, Even Heroes Die. So, big announcement. I've released the game's first demo to the public. This is the first time the game is accessible to really anyone except for me. I mentioned in the last devlog, I really wanted to get a demo out there before the end of the year. In software developer time, that means before the end of next year, so really we're ahead of schedule. This is good. This is a really important moment for the project, because now I can finally start getting some feedback on how the game feels. It's still really early in development, so we're going to be pretty light on content. Really, I just want to know how it feels to play. Can the player jump too high? Is the level too cramped? Does he have too many abilities to start with? These are all things that are going to be much easier for me to change right now as opposed to going back and doing later. So right off the bat, we've got a menu screen. Here we have a few settings we can customize. We can go and we can change the controls. I know some people get pretty testy when they can't remap the controls, and that's understandable, so I want to be accommodating to people that like to play games in different ways. Here we can change our resolution settings, we can toggle full screen if we want. Basic stuff. Here we can add a seed for the run, which basically means it's like a password for a previous run we've done, and it'll allow us to replay that same exact level that was generated randomly. So we're just going to jump right into a run here. I put up a few prompts for things I couldn't really squeeze into the tutorial. Basically just explaining the fast travel system. You can set up a point and then go to your map, where you can then use it to warp to any of those points that you've set. And either setting or going to a point will use one of those warp circles you've got underneath your stamina bar. You can refill this by killing enemies. Just a way to kind of prevent you from just spamming it, warping everywhere, every time you run into danger. Makes you think a little bit about using it. So here we have our first roadblock. We can't get past these spikes. I guess we could, but we would take damage. We're going to try to avoid that for now. So we just set up a warp point and we'll come back later. Here we have sticky bombs. They'll stick to a wall when thrown, and the player can stick to them too to get higher, but you risk blowing up. Here we've got our first vial shop. A couple different vials we can buy. Basically, these will reset our curse meter, but they each come with their own side effects. What happens when the curse meter fills up? Well, the Grim Reaper basically chases you and will kill you if he touches you, so you're kind of picking your poison with this one. So here we have our first upgrade chest. I can tell because of that little orange cross on the map I've left for myself. And here we have the invincibility cloak. So this might be a little overpowered right now, but it basically turns you invisible and invincible. So you can sneak up on enemies, you can avoid damage. It's pretty broken, but it does drain a lot of stamina. This game's definitely going to need a lot of rebalancing. So now we can come back here to our spikes, and then we'll be able to use this ability if I can get past these enemies real quick. Trying not to completely rely on the cloak. Now we can get past these spikes, no problem. And here we've got a little puzzle we have to overcome by using the cloak. Again, we could kind of just brute force it, but it's not our style. So we do have to time it pretty carefully because the cloak does drain a lot of stamina. So if we just run through, we're going to run out of stamina and it won't do us any good. So now that we've got that, it's a little blue heart. This is a similar mechanic found in games like Binding of Isaac and Enter the Gungeon. It's basically an extra heart that'll permanently go away once you lose it. So here we're coming up on our first vial that we find in a treasure chest. And this is a short-term memory vial. So the short-term memory side effect will basically prevent us from recording new areas on our map as we visit them until the effect wears off. And then once it does, we'll gain all the areas back. I thought it'd be kind of annoying to make you have to go back and revisit all those areas again just to have them on your map. So it's only for while the effect is enabled that they won't be visible. So here we are coming up to the end of the first area. We've reached the spikes, which we can overcome again with the invisibility cloak. And now we're going to reach the forest dungeon area. Basically, all areas will consist of an overworld and then a dungeon. So this was the forest and then the forest dungeon. Here we have our first item shop. Here we can basically buy from the power-ups that weren't included in the main run. So none of these power-ups will be required, but depending on the run, maybe they could be used in interesting ways to skip certain dungeon items or maybe get to certain places faster. I like the idea of not having a set way of getting through each run. So here we've got a template that's unique to the forest dungeon, just these little spike spears that come out of the wall. They wouldn't really make sense in the regular forest. Up here we've got our first roadblock in the forest dungeon. These wooden crates we won't be able to get past, so we'll set another warp point. Down here we'll come up to our first key. You might recognize this template from another area. It's basically just because there's not enough variety yet in the puzzles. I need to design a lot more. I'm going to grab this heart real quick. So dungeons introduced the idea of keys and locks. It actually took quite a bit of time for me to get the algorithm right, so that a valid combination of keys and locks would always be generated, so you would never hit a dead end. Here's another exclusive template to the forest dungeon. Things that wouldn't really make sense to have in a forest, unless you're in the world of Super Meat Boy, I guess. So coming up here, we've got our next power-up. We've been pretty lucky in getting power-ups pretty early in each area. Sometimes you do have to explore a little bit more. So here we have the fire element. This can also be toggled on and off like the invisibility cloak. And what this will do is allow us to let our attacks ignite certain objects, and it will also help us light up dark rooms. And now I'm going to quickly switch and use this vial, because if you've been keeping an eye on our bottom left curse meter, that's practically full. So we've reset it, and now we have short-term memory loss, which means we'll have trouble remembering new areas as we visit them on the map. So let's move right on ahead to a dark area. You can see we pretty much can't see anything right now without the fire element on. And then our radius grows quite a bit when we have it on. I'll probably need to tweak this a little bit. Even with this brightness, it becomes a little tough to see some enemies. I tried to add a faint glow around the enemies, but I definitely have to play around with things like their contrast with the background, the lighting effects. All this stuff needs to be tweaked. Like right there, I totally missed that bat. Could also just be that I don't know how to play my own video game. Entirely possible. But I think odds are if I have trouble with my own game, other people are going to too. As a general rule, I think I should be a lot better at my own game than other people. So we're going to set another warp point here. And we're actually going to go back and we're going to break this crate that we saw earlier. These two crates. And in doing so, we'll be able to go up and get that treasure chest. So I wasn't careful here and I kind of just set myself on fire. Probably could have just got past it with the invisibility cloak. So now we can reach that treasure chest too. And this has a blue heart. Nothing too exciting. I haven't really been playing too great and I'm still at full health, so maybe I've just been spawning too many hearts. Here we are back in the item shop. We now have enough to buy a bomb bag. And this will let us basically spawn infinite bombs. It'll just use up some stamina every time we take one out. And the reason I'm doing this is there's a cool synergy with the fire element, where you can heat up the bombs and turn them into sticky bombs. So you could potentially use this to scale walls. Dangerous, but effective. So now we're going to run up here and we're going to collect the boss key for this area. Just another little roadblock with wooden crates. And so with that, we're ready to start looking for the boss door. Now, I haven't actually coded up a boss yet. I've only created 3 enemies, so I'm probably going to wait for my enemy AI design skills to get a little bit better before I start taking a boss on. I know if I go to design one now, I'm just going to want to redesign it towards the end of the game's development cycle, and I really don't want to do that. I really do think there's a strong correlation between procrastination and perfectionism. So at this point, I'm really starting to feel the effects of that short-term memory loss. I'm kind of getting lost in my own dungeon. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a warp point, and then I'm going to go back and get a vial just so I can get a new side effect. My meter's getting pretty full anyway. And there's nothing here. Okay, so this is a totally normal part of the development process. This is why we do demos and trial runs to find these kinds of bugs. Now that that's resolved, I actually used a seed to regenerate the same level layout. think most things are the same as they were. I didn't go back and create some items. Now I'm basically in debug mode. Just want to finish this dungeon out. So you'll see I have a couple extra items now. So here we're going to use our fat vial that I was always intending to use. So it's a little bit of a subtle effect, but our roll definitely becomes a little bit slower, and you can feel the character's jump get a bit heavier as well. So now we've got all that straightened out. We're finally at the end of the dungeon. Just want to get to this boss door, show off this boss door opening animation that I made. And here we go, the boss. Just a basic skeleton. And that's it. I won. I beat myself at my own game. So just a couple things I wanted to show off before I ended the video. I didn't get to quite show off every item in the run. So here we have the leaf and the boomerang, which I believe I've shown off before. So you can use the wind boomerang to create a gale of wind, and you can use the glider to ride it. Now, the one thing I want to show off that I've never shown off before is this little booma guy. It kind of functions as a bomb chew from the Zelda games. It'll climb up walls, and you can press the button again to detonate it. You can also let it climb up walls and stand on top of it, and it'll act like a moving platform. So that's pretty neat. Gotta watch out for that blast radius, though. And I guess you could technically use it for bomb jumping if you really wanted to, but it does a lot of damage, so you might want to think twice. So yeah, that's all I've got for you guys. Now all that's left is for you to play it and let me know what you think. I left a link to a Google survey. It would help a lot if you could fill that out. Just give me some basic information about how your playthrough went. You can also leave a comment on the itch.io page, leave a comment here. There's also a bug reporting feature in the game itself from the pause menu, if you want to do that. So you could type in messages about bugs you've had in there and I'll get the information. You can also just tell me how you're doing, how your life's going, vent to me about your life's problems. I'll probably read them all. I've also been considering doing some streams of the game's development on Twitch. I haven't really done anything like that before, but I think it could be fun. I'll leave a link to my Twitch in the description. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. So yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think of the game. I'm really excited to hear what you guys think. If you want to follow the game's progress, please subscribe and follow me on Twitter. I'd also really appreciate it if you could give this video a like. It really does help me a lot. Until next time.